One of the really neat things about this project is that I was able to use actual resources and work with staff and students to help curate and craft this product. As you can see from the LibGuide here, it actually appears on the Robinson Secondary School page. And while it is a private tab, and so is not something that students would come across, I still went through the same process I would have were I a librarian in this setting. I got to speak with students in the film class itself. I also got to talk to the teacher about the project, and I met with the IB coordinators to help curate this and put it together in a polished format. And so my hope is that by viewing and exploring this LibGuide, you'll kind of see some of those elements. So on this front page here, you can see that I've included some specifics as well as a link to the IB Film Studies overview. But up top here, you'll see that I've divided it further into a few other areas for student reference. Going to the assignment guide and due dates section, you can see I've broken it apart in terms of what students need to find for their research, when things are due, and then what the teacher is expecting of students as a part of their research. The original film guide independent study is here, but I decided to break these apart separately to make it easier and for ease of access generally. Since Noodle Tools is also a project that, or a part of the project rather, that students are going to be using heavily, I've tried to do a few things to really give them some reminders and elements to look through. There's a direct link to Noodle Tools, and then I've also included a checklist and sample note card for them. But the element that I'm most proud of is really over in this area here, and the fact that I created 6 different tutorial videos that students can use to find out how to do things on their own if they miss it in class or if they need a refresher. The last thing that I included was the resources and databases section. And so what we have here with a few of the print sources in the library, we have the databases that would be most used to them, and then we also have internet and visual resources here. I also tried to assist students by including some elements of the films that I might be interested in looking at information for. And so I chose as my sample Gone with the Wind so that they could see what sort of information they might be able to find if they reference these sites. My second task, as you can see here, was to create an actual lesson plan that I might use were I to lead this in a classroom setting. And so part of my work and research involved adding in some education standards, both for English grade 12, which is when students are sitting this course, and down here, some of the AASL standards, which are things that I would need to become more familiar with in a library setting. And so I tried to incorporate those into my own handling of the project here. In terms of the activity, I utilized the LEARN model, which is something that Fairfax County has utilized in the past to set up its lessons in terms of a link, an engage and educate, an active learning, a reflection section, and a now and then. I didn't go overly detailed into multiple classes since librarians at our school tend to give just one main lesson and then supervise in an advisory role. But I do still think it served as a useful window into what it was that I wanted to do with the students in class. The last thing that I made was a project manipulative, something that could be given to students when they entered the library for their research day. I tried to make it as straightforward as possible so that students could maybe choose from a predetermined set of options of things that they might be interested in looking at for film, but then also giving them some space to explore some of their own ideas in the early stages of their research. My hope with this manipulative was that we could find some opening resources that students could then use to move on to the other stages of the lesson and the LibGuides in terms of citing sources and building their note cards. So all in all, this is a self-contained lesson that could then be expanded into future settings of research and organization.